for the wrong show.
No, if you think about it, the first semifinal that Sydney and Paige, well, not the first, it was the second one for, no, it was their second semifinal for Paige and Sydney was Granite Games in 2022, 21. Because the year prior, Paige was competing at Atlas and Sydney competed at West Coast. So
the first time they competed against each other, and you thought that would be more appropriate than the Jake Marconi Malachi Bennett Granite Games story?
Yes, exactly. A little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm no, they weren't against each other at that semifinal. They competed at different Granite Games.
Did they? You sure?
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm pretty sure. We'll ask them when they come on. But I see Paige's 2021, and I see
Sydney was
2022. No, she was at West Coast. Okay. You're right about that.
Okay, right. Okay, okay. Damn it.
But unlike you, I wore a shirt of an event that they're both competing at this weekend.
Yeah. Well, I don't have that shirt yet.
No, and I'm hopeful. This one says friend on the back. I actually should have told Phil this, but I'm hopeful that yours says PC.
We shall see.
It shouldn't say anything else if he's going to make one for you.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's like Bella should just say Bella. It should not say Marta. No one will know what that is.
Well, anyway, Miss Bella.
This is the final podcast we're doing in the run up to Reps Ahead 3 Redemption. James is coming on in about 25 minutes or so, and then the girls, Paige Powers and Sydney Wells, will join up after that. James Sprague, if you didn't know who I was referring to, 3 of the athletes that are featured towards the end of the Reps Ahead showcase this weekend. Patrick is actually leaving very quickly at the end of this podcast to fly to Colorado, so we decided to come on about 30 minutes early and talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the world of CrossFit, the space of CrossFit, leading into the interviews with James and then Paige and Sydney.
Yeah. There's been some stuff, going on the last couple of days. If you haven't, we'll dive into it. But first thing I want to get into is Sasha Nieves. Brian, tell us about Sasha. What do you know about
Nieves,
Sasha?
You mean?
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure what's going on with terms of the injuries or updates or surgeries or whatever she's having, but we saw her compete on Team Complex in California, and she looked great. I mean, it's always a little bit different watching athletes compete on team than individually, but for me, having relatively limited opportunities to see her compete in person, that was the best I'd seen her look. Even in context of team programming, you can see certain things about the way individuals are moving, the way they're handling competition in general. We did see her before and after some events, in addition to obviously doing the workouts. And she looked really good. Their team was really impressive. And it was a big day for South America and Mexico in terms of North America in general, because even though Sasha's, she's from Argentina, and some of the other athletes that qualified on those teams that had the Mexican flag are also from South American countries. There were Mexicans on both those teams, and it's the first time that a Mexican athlete through the semifinal stage team, or a Mexican team, I guess, has pushed through and qualified to the games. This post is 4 days ago, and we see her biking with the sling on there. So not entirely sure what that's going to mean for the rest of her season. Haven't reached out to ask her about it, but concerning because she's.
That's why you have someone like me.
That is why I have someone like you.
Yeah. So she dislocated her shoulder. She's got it back in place. That's why she's wearing a sling. But reached out to some people that have knowledge and from a reliable source that she had a minor shoulder dislocation. So she was in a sling for a few days, currently rehabbing, but there should be no issues with her competing with her team at the games.
Which is great to hear. And, that's what you want to hear. Obviously, we had the situation with the Kalashnikov team that we talked about the other day. I think we're going to do a little follow-up on it. But in general, when you're thinking about, global sports and the qualification processes, especially when there's representation from different parts of the world, it's really nice to have the best athletes, the best teams at the championship level event. So that team that did look so good in California seems like they'll still be training there. Clearly, there's an interruption to training and to some of the things that she can do in the lead up between now and the games. Additionally, clearly on the team, chemistry, teamwork, communication are important elements that are going to be difficult to practice while she's recovering from that readjustment. But the fact that she can still compete is good to hear.
We've been able to see her 21 games as an individual. She's an Olympian for Argentina. She was on that 5th place, I believe. Were they 5th place in 2022? That Mayhem team that had Luke Parker, Angelo, Alexis Johnson. But no, you're right. She looked great with that WADX team, and obviously team training is. I think team training is so valuable between semifinals and the games, and I don't think this will affect her too much. She's a veteran. She's done a good job with that. She's experienced. So you mentioned CrossFit Marvel. They we were hoping that they would get that invitation. Lo and behold, they did get the extended invitation. So CrossFit Marvel Black Mayhem out of Korea will be representing Korea. And that means that Korea, we'll count Carlos as Korean. I think he has dual citizenship.
He's been there forever either way. So
yeah, and he's deeply embedded with that team. Last year when they did the parade of flags, I guess I'm going to call it the parade of flags, the opening ceremony, he was obviously with the team carrying the Korean flag. So this year, it looks like they'll have 6 athletes from Korea representing the games, with Sung Young Choi, Daewon, and of course across from Marvel Black team.
Yeah, and that means, quite frankly, that means they'll be one of the more well-represented countries. It's even if obviously there's the United States, Canada, but even the European countries, because of the teams, there are some countries that will have bigger representations, but in a lot of cases, there's 1 or 2 athletes that qualify from a country. So for them to have a team plus 2 individuals is pretty cool.
Yeah. But it's really cool. And I know people are probably sick and tired of me just going on this whole Asia, bandwagon train, whatever. The reason why I'm such a big fan is, like, I went there, I got to see it. It was very welcoming. I got to see the growth. And when you have people saying that, oh, Asia, these athletes suck, but yet they'll sit there and say, like, hey, I want the sport to thrive. Well, if you want the sport to thrive, the sport needs to thrive if the community thrives. The community thrives if there's growth. And you're not doing anyone any favors by calling someone's best athletes terrible, or they're saying they suck, or that region is insignificant. No, that region is very significant. Korea, Asia is very significant in the growth of CrossFit. And if you guys don't believe me, then just look at the numbers. That's all I gotta say. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. Games veterans on this team, they qualified last year when they had 2 spots as well. So if you look at the semifinals results, clearly the Kalashnikov team was the better team. Yes, it was all first and second places for both teams, but sometimes the margins of victory when Marvel Black one was small, and when Kalashnikov team won, in some cases it was quite large. So would not expect them to do as well, but they do have some games experience. They will represent that community, that culture, that country very well at the games, and also the pattern in terms of whether it's an individual athlete or a team not getting a games invite for whatever reason, visa, drug failure, injury, the process of doing those backfills is usually determined by time relative to the games. And in this case, there's plenty of time, so they extend the invite, and we still get to have hopefully a full 30 teams at the games.
That wasn't directed just to John Young. It's directed to anyone that says that. And there's CJ, just because it's significant does not automatically give out a higher ranking. I'm not talking about rankings. I'm ranking them low too, but it's how you convey it. Like saying they're insignificant, they suck, they're terrible, they don't matter. No, that just, to me, maybe I'm being overly PC, overly sensitive about it, but I'm just being respectful about it. When you have people that are saying stuff, bold statements like that, but at the same time, they look at CrossFit as they want the growth in CrossFit. Well, this is where the growth of CrossFit comes from, and you're not doing anyone again, you're not doing anyone any goods. But again, like I
I
said,
wanna.
that's just
I think we can incorporate this kind of
yeah,
conversation that's going on in the chat here. Julian gets things started a few minutes ago. Do you guys think Dave's will get to all 80 athletes? We'll just kind of bring up the. This is, I guess, different. We'll start with this. Do you guys
yeah.
think Dave will get to all 80 athletes? I think someone had said, Sarah, yeah, I'm guessing mostly North American athletes. So far, it seems like mostly North American athletes. However, who had put this comment up about the calendar? That was
Yeah,
that he sounds
basically,
like he set up a calendar and filled up right away. Either that or it didn't work. I couldn't quite tell. Dave can be a little cryptic in the way that he speaks, but I would expect if you're trying to schedule something like that, that he is probably using. Sometimes when podcasts hosts reach out to us to be guests on their show, they'll send us a link, and then you can go to the link and pick a time slot. So he's probably got something like that set up with the Pacific time. But I don't think that, even though he's publishing 1 or 2 a day right now, I don't think that he's necessarily in a rush to get them all out in the first 2 weeks. It's 80 people, and a lot of those athletes will be traveling to the US sometime in July. For example, a bunch of the athletes from Australia, especially the underdogs ones, which we'll talk about that in a second as well. Like, they're coming next week. And so probably it doesn't make sense for Ricky Garrard to try to line up a interview with Dave while he's still in Australia if he can do it next week while he's in the States. So I would guess, and I could be wrong, that as the international athletes start traveling to the States, that we'll start to see more of those populate. And he has responded to critics who've said, I doubt you'll get all 80, by saying, the only reason I won't get all 80 is if someone says no. But I've invited all, and I'm committed to getting them all. And that kind of dovetails into what you were saying, which is that, when you're talking about the growth of the sport and CrossFit's decision to continuously keep guaranteed qualifying spots from obviously weaker regions when it comes to live competition performance, that's a historical fact, is that in general, those regions have lower placing finishes at the games. This helps. Having Dave interact with, give those guys the same opportunity that Justin Medeiros has, the same opportunity for Ruan Potgieter or for Peter Ellis or for Calum Clements from Spain, to kid on 10, 12 minutes on his platform. That's huge. And we have seen Sevan, Pedro, Jason CF Media, us, and many others who interview these athletes with the same intention, is to give exposure to the athletes that don't have a lot of exposure in North America. Well, Dave's clearly going to be doing that, and I hope the athletes take him up on it.
No, definitely. And if you know anything about Dave, when Dave is goal orientated, or if he has a specific thing, he's going to go for it. Like, I mean, he's famously said, what was he was going to read X amount of books in a year, and he did that. He's said that I think he was a couple of years ago at regionals that he was going to try to make as many regionals as possible, and he was just like flying to every location. I'm trying to remember when it was.
He does stuff like that. I mean,
yeah.
he would hit the circuit during the regional days. I remember in 2018, because I was doing the kind of circuit with Sevan that year. We were in Albany. He showed up for a day or part of a day, and then he's on the road again and off to the next one. And
he did that
showed up in Del Mar, same thing. He got there on the last day, but he had just come from South America, where they had the problem with the transport of equipment that year. And we actually talked about that on the podcast that he decided last minute to join us for. And so, he has a history of doing that. And I think, obviously, Dave is selective about who he lets into a close circle. And some athletes have become friends of his over time. He's very intentional about what he focuses on and what he doesn't focus on. But if you don't really if you're not giving him the credit for making the effort to travel to some of those events historically through his career, then you're missing an element of what he has committed to doing. Even open announcements. Think about the one that he did in Italy, middle of the night with Sam and Kristen, that he's done. He's gone on the road for those things. So
he's a military person. Military people they run off task and purpose. And he's no longer in the military, but that's still his credo. I mean, you give him a task and purpose, he can accomplish it. So
this is kind of an interesting comment. Dave is the media team, because I could not do any of the things that I'm doing or most of the things I'm doing without Patrick and Chad. And I think that it's important that people understand that a lot of times, and I would say in general, Hiller is an exception to this in our space and in our sport. Maybe there are some others. Like I'm not sure how much back end stuff that Scott does, for example. Chase Ingram does a lot of stuff for his podcast, but he outsources work as well. A lot of times, the most forward facing person in a media team or a company or whatever can only do many of the things they do because of the support that they have behind the scenes. And so, yes, Dave is kind of having this forward facing role that seems to be kind of carrying some of the media narrative this season. But I'm sure that he does also have some support in that maybe we don't know about, even if it might even be someone setting up that calendar for him so that the events can get on the schedule. I mean, that's the primary thing Sevan didn't want to do 3-4 years ago. And Souza was like, no problem, bro. I'll do that for you. You just have to we need to create a platform for you to do what you do well. And that's what it takes, is the behind the scenes support. So I get where that comment's coming from, but I also think it's a little.
It is helping the CrossFit media though by putting out some things, because I mean, you talked about, you typically before the games, the media consists of like either like workouts or looking at past workouts, or it's really not promoting the event so much, more is promoting the past champions or the past performances of the event leading up to the event, which is fine. But I think this is an actual, they've never, outside I think last year when Chase did a couple podcasts, this is something, this is where it seems like every day they'll have material to do stuff. So
Finally, Jake is here. What's up, brother? And
yeah, Jake,
I know Melanie also said, but thanks.
Yeah.
They didn't notice your haircut, PC, because
They did it. It's the
it's
same
so
one.
subtle.
Yeah, it's the same one every
I've been
time.
putting that one off to wait for this trip, since I'll probably won't have another chance to get one till the week before the games. Do you want to talk about Sean? Because people have been
I will say
about it.
Yeah, well, I will say, if I don't know if anyone from CrossFit is listening, but they still have the KT Kalishnikov team listed on the team, the teams. So they have 31 teams listed. So, but I guess in actuality, they did earn a ticket to the games, so they are a games team. They qualified for the games. But all right, Sean Woodland. We're on the phone yesterday just talking, and then
I mean, it's kind of funny because the day before I was talking to someone on the phone and just kind of asking if there was any information that had been floating around about broadcasts at the games type of information. All of us are always just trying to get that information so that we can plan accordingly one way or the other. And I could tell that the conversation I was having, that this person probably knew something that I didn't know. And so I just backed off. I wasn't trying to have that conversation to get any information, just whatever. And then lo and behold, this pops up yesterday, which was the next day. And I saw that, obviously, I think we were on a phone call when
we're on a phone call.
You saw this and you're like, dude, check out Sean's Instagram. What is this, up to 9,000 likes? I don't know how many comments are on here, but all the comments that I saw yesterday were extremely positive, extremely supportive, and rightfully so. I mean, Sean is the comments do a better job of explaining what I could possibly say here, but he's synonymous with the CrossFit Games. He's synonymous with broadcasting the games. Rich Froning, this is lame. Tommy and Rory wrote some nice. I'll say the one kind of weird thing Chase obviously wrote something is like, and I think someone had asked me about this. It felt almost like a eulogy. It's like if the post almost feels like he died.
Well, Spin put a story, and I thought it actually did look like a eulogy. He did like a black and white picture. It was like an in memoriam type thing, and I think some people in comments even said that. But yeah, I mean, we're on the phone. We're on the phone. It was right around, and it was towards the end of Sevon's podcast. I kind of glanced over my shoulder, and Sevon, I had it on mute, and he
was he live when
yes.
Sean posted this?
Yeah, it was live. So that's when I was like, oh shit. And then I looked on my phone and I'm like, oh my God, Sean just, and then that's when, and then we both got the phone. I immediately reached out to Sean, sent him a text. I was surprised he immediately returned the text back. Very positive. If you know Sean personally, and we both can say you've worked with him obviously a lot. We both can call him a friend, and his positive attitude is just amazing. And this post kind of says that.
Yeah, he's like, in sports, I think that someone made this analogy somewhere in the comments, but you have people that kind of pave the way. And
Mhm.
we've often had this conversation with the GOAT, right? The greatest of all time between athletes when we're comparing Rich Froning and Matt Fraser.
Yeah.
And Rich falls into that role like a Michael Jordan or a Tiger Woods, where what he
Mhm.
paved for athletes that followed him was not just about what the top level of success could potentially be in the sport. It's about what the top level of earning potential, of fame, of influence could be outside of the walls of competition. Uh, Clearly, you also have to be very good or one of the best to do that, but that's somewhat dependent on time. Fraser didn't have that opportunity because by the time he found the sport and got to be good enough, Rich had already started paving that way. And then he becomes the next evolution of it, the person who continues the path. Sean, in terms of commentary for the CrossFit Games, is the equivalent of Rich Froning as an athlete because of the timing of when he entered the sport, where the sport was at, how good he was, how committed to the task he was, how much passion he brought, how much preparation he did, the experience prior to doing it. All those things, cumulatively for a dozen years now, have produced the most iconic calls and have amplified the most iconic moments because of those calls. And they will forever live in the memory of the sport. And for people who, like us, who got an opportunity to experience many of those in real time, and many of those also because he was doing it before we came along, after the fact, those moments live on. A few years ago, when Noble was still running the games and O'Keefe was heavily involved, he asked me to come up with a series of the best calls in the history of the CrossFit Games that they played while the athletes were walking through the Noble arena, like booth, to get all their stuff at the start of the weekend at the games. And they're all his calls, and I'm just remembering and sending. And it's just like, of course they're Sean. It has to be Sean. And so it's absolutely justified, all the support that he's getting. It makes a ton of sense. The grieving, the mourning, the kind of not knowing what's coming next type of a feeling is understandable. I believe Sean when he says that he still intends to broadcast this sport and to be involved in this sport. The kind of the sting was really in the first sentence where he said, "I knew this day would come one day. I just wished that it would come my way."
On
I
his
guess.
terms. Yeah.
Yeah, on his
Yeah.
terms.
I kind of brought this up, and I think Hiller, obviously, Hiller, he recognizes, that Sean is the voice of CrossFit. He may not agree with some of the things Sean says, and he's made Sean maybe the butt of some of his jokes, or some not maybe not even the butt, but part of the subjects for some of his videos. But at the end of the day, he put something up, and I put something up like this. Is you think of any great sports announcer outside, they've all been able to go out on their terms in some way or the other. Whether it's John Madden, Al Michaels, um, I mean Harry Carey. I mean, I think of all the great sports
But
announcers.
I even parallel it to people like um the Bob Barker from The Price is Right, or why am I drawing the blank? Alec Trebek from
Yeah,
Jeopardy.
yeah,
The ends of eras obviously come. They have
yeah,
to come. Nothing
yeah,
is eternal in this world.
yeah.
But
But
a
it's
lot of
not.
times it's coordinated so
Yeah,
that it's meaningful, that it pays respect to, that it honors the work and the commitment and everything else that those people have committed to that.
yeah.
Look, and lost in all of this, I know Chase really well.
Hmm.
Chase loves broadcasting. He
Yeah,
loves calling the CrossFit Games, and he loved doing it with Sean. And I have sat in many rooms with them and talked before. I've sat next to them and listened to them. I've talked to them after competitions doing this stuff. And it's going to be interesting. I remember one time Chase telling me that one of his favorite moments of the CrossFit Games is the final march to the finish line for the eventual champion, where he just sits back and has the front row view, the closest view you could have, audio and visually, of Sean doing his thing as he brings in the next champion.
hmm,
Chase an emotional man, which is a
yeah,
good thing. And
yeah,
I'm curious and excited to see how he handles those moments, because I think that's going to be heavy for him. And
yeah. I just, yeah, I just I just think it's a big miss. I mean, I don't know why or how. I'm sure, some people is it money. I just can't imagine Sean. Sean, he owes so much to the sport of CrossFit that I don't think money is an object for him. I think he would take it. I mean, I don't know. I think we've seen a lot of changes in CrossFit. We've seen a lot of things going. Maybe they want to go a different way, but I don't know. I just think I think it could have been handled and done a lot better. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, big loss. I mean, I owe a lot of me being in CrossFit. I mean, the reason why I'm even involved in media and CrossFit is Tommy Marquez. And without Tommy and Brian, I know Tommy means he's up there with you as well, along with Sevon. You wouldn't be doing without those two people. But out of extension would be Sean as well. So I wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think a lot of something that is maybe not understood. People talk about like how small our community is, and when you kind of work your way up towards specific roles, like it becomes even smaller and smaller. There's just a few people that have this kind of experience of working with Sean and working with Chase and with Bill Grunler back in the day and Tommy and all these others. It's a small network. And like I mentioned, I've had these opportunities to be in those rooms, to be in those conversations, suggest ideas, hear their ideas, evaluate, critique ourselves, whatever. And, you mentioned a few different words to describe Sean, but in many ways, it's beyond friendship. It's or mentorship. It's a combination of those things, of just learning from the best that we've ever had to do it. Obviously, I've done a ton of play-by-play and commentary these past 18 months or so. And a lot of the things that I'm doing there are lessons learned from Sean. Like it's not even a group of people. It's like I've worked so many events with him, had so many conversations, meals with him, subtle things, private conversations, things that he has said on podcasts. For 3 or 4 years in a row, I never missed a Talking Elite Fitness episode. And then I was on a bunch of Talking Elite Fitness episodes. And in all these cases, it's just learning from the guy. He's the guy.
I'm still a Patreon on that show.
Yeah.
They've offered so much support with them and the Buttery Bros. Like I'm still a Patreon for them. I mean, it's weird. But we'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully there's a plan.
I know people are asking about the other members of the broadcast. Even if I knew, I don't think I would say. I feel like that's really theirs to share, whether it's CrossFit or the individual person. Yes, definitely. Lucy Campbell and Chase were great. I have no idea if they're planning to involve her again. Of course, it would have been great to have Don's perspective on this. But again, this might not be something that Don has any say in, or he may trust other people. Quite frankly, he should be trusting other people to do that. Even though it's a huge thing for people who love the sport, it's too small of a thing for the CEO to have any really tangible. If he's worrying about that type of a thing, I don't know. It would be great to have someone on the commentary that doesn't really know much about CrossFit. Someone like Sevon or Hiller. Well, they happen to know a lot about CrossFit. So
yeah. We'll move on. James is there. James, nod your head if you want to be a part of this conversation. Okay. All right.
I have no clue what we're talking about. Throw me.
Okay, but you just nod your head. We're kind of like doing some housekeeping, knocking out some news. Obviously, there's been a lot of news last few days, so we're just commenting on it before we brought you on. And you're early, but so if you have anything to say, we'll definitely take your opinion. But yesterday, it's something that myself, Brian, we've known about for a little bit, but it was made official yesterday that Kiefer, formerly co-owner of Underdogs, is now coach at Proven. So very obviously the timing of it, 47 days out of the game or 43 days away from the games, but yeah. So
I didn't think we'd have enough news to even get through 30 minutes, and here we are going well past 30 minutes.
Exactly. James, did you hear about this at all?
Yeah, I was confused. I thought he was like the main guy at Underdogs with Justin. I thought he ran the show over there. So all I thought about was like, are all his, because he coaches a lot of the girls there. So I was wondering, like, I'm going to Proven with him, or what's, there was a lot of questions around that. Definitely, that I'm curious to find out. But hopefully, it was an easy, seamless thing for both parties.
Yeah, well, he was on Spin's podcast last night, and he said it was a business decision. And as far as he knows, he's talked to all his athletes. It's been and from what I hear, every athlete that he coaches, they're staying with him as a coach. Whether they're titled proven or not is a different thing, because obviously there's that case for where you have athletes that have a camp coach, but that has a camp coach, but aren't a part of that camp. Someone that comes to mind is someone like DB, who has Coach L as a coach, who Coach L is Brute Stroke, but she's not a Brute athlete. And then there's other instances of that. I mean, but for what I know, Kyra Milligan, Grace Walton, and Bailey Martin will be proven athletes for the games.
Gotcha.
Camp. Yeah.
Which is
talk of
whatever. As far as that's like kind of whatever. It's always this thing. This happens in sports though. How often have you seen? I mean, I think especially it happens in football, where someone might be on the pro roster for a team. The first couple of games of the season, they get injured. You never see from them again. Their team goes on to win the Super Bowl. They get a ring. And then you have another athlete who may not even play a majority of the year or might be riding the bench on another team. And I feel like this happens with like older running backs a lot, or fullbacks or something. And then they'll just get signed right before the playoffs, play and whatever, and boom, they're there for the postseason. That's probably the more comparable example. We obviously up to I don't know, sometime in the last 3 weeks or so, yes, all those things that we said about Kiefer being integrally involved with underdogs was true. And all of the athletes that he was coaching were training under that umbrella and philosophy. So majority of the work that's been putting up to that point is there. But when it comes time to take the field on championship week, at the games, they'll be wearing a different, they'll be underneath a different heading. Yeah. And you guys can evaluate that however you want to.
Yeah. And Jo is completely right here. There isn't any drama. It happens, especially nowadays, if you follow collegiate sports with the NIL, you have coaches that leave, they go from one college to another. Well, now with the NIL and the transfer rules, players will follow their coaches now. They're not technically tied in. And most of these players, they go to a school because of the coach. And just same way in CrossFit. I mean, a lot of athletes, James, you can talk on. You put a lot of trust. You've been with Matt since you're a teen.
Mm-hmm.
And if Matt you followed Matt around. You've got up and moved from Washington to go to Florida.
Yeah.
That's why you're into it. I mean, you build a trust. They know, these coaches know you better than anybody else. And I mean, I think it's a no-brainer for athletes. And also, I think for the athletes, what it also does is like being associated with Proven. Like I manage an athlete that Kiefer coaches. She has opportunities now open to her because she's associated with Proven now. I mean, whether it be through, because Tia, when you think of Proven, you think of Tia and Shane. And they bring numbers, they bring names, they bring potential partnerships. So it's an exciting time for those athletes. I know it's an exciting and stressful time for Kiefer because this is happening, a couple less than 2 months out from the games. But but it's odd. But at the same time, I think that we'll see more of this happen. Maybe not before the games, but we've already seen it happen before.
Anyway, we will take Sarah's advice here. Just wanted to acknowledge some of the things that have happened this week in the sport. And also this week, we have the Reps Ahead Pro 3 redemption match that's coming up in Thornton, Colorado. And James, this is the third pro edition of Reps Ahead. And you're the holdover. You won the first one, so you had the right to come back and defend your title. You lost the second one, and somehow you still got the invite back.
Dude, I feel very lucky to have the invite back. I think it was the perfect way for me to break up games training in half. So it's kind of directly in the middle of like when I qualified to when the games is. So it gave me something to like focus on mid games training that wasn't just like beating myself to a brim for 2.5 months straight. And so it's like, I'm super excited, man. I've been on a deload this week. It ended up working out perfectly for my deload. And it's just like, yeah, it's a really fun, hard sequence. I think it's definitely the most difficult one yet. It's very similar to the first one, except just squat instead of squat snatch, it's a thruster in there, so you're not going to see as many breaks on the barbell. And oh my gosh, Lee, get out of here. And the biggest change they did was made it 3 minutes on instead of 2, which I think plays into my favor a little bit because it makes it more aerobic and less power based and more aerobic based. So I personally, this is my favorite sequence yet. And I think that it's going to be cool because Nick's out for some blood. Like he's definitely like had some adversity this season that makes him really want to come out and punch it hard. And I think the combo of that versus me, who's been training for the games and putting a lot of long, hard hours already in the last month, is going to make for a show.
You, I think, mentioned on Instagram recently that the last week of training, sometime you did, was the hardest week of training you've ever done.
Yeah, so I typically go like this. It's week 1 is like an accumulation phase. Week 2 is kind of intensification phase, and then week 3 is kind of combining those, so it's intense and high volume. So like any week 3 in my training is always really hard, but during the games, the week 3 is just like feels like it's on steroids. So I just felt like I was training so much last week, and it was all great. My body's great, healthy, but I'm just, I took it to heart when Dave said they're going to kind of go back to OG programming and do more grindy stuff, and my training's been reflecting that a lot.
Have you scheduled your interview with Dave yet?
No, I didn't know that was a thing. I've seen a couple athletes.
Oh, caught Dave in a lie.
No, he doesn't necessarily. He may not be inviting all 80 athletes at once to fill up the calendar. But he has made the commitment, he said, to at least offer the opportunity for all 80 individual games athletes to come on and have about a 10-minute conversation with him. He's probably posted a half a dozen or so far.
Wow. Yeah, I saw those. I was intrigued by them, and I've definitely listened to a few of them too. I love listening to his weekend review. He throws out subtle hints and things athletes should know, and I think that's important. And part of the job of being a pro athlete is knowing what's going on in the space. So it's good to always tune into those.
Actually, that's go ahead.
I'm sorry, Brian. Speaking of subtle hints, what's on your head,
dude? Oh, this is just a hat my buddy gave me.
Okay.
Down there in Mayhem. He went there.
Okay. Just saying.
Oh,
Just saying. All right.
I went and hung out there in November. I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. Had a great week, but nothing's moving me away from home at this point.
I was going to say, it's like that Tennessee Tech hat. All right.
It's a cool environment. I really did enjoy it. I think for me, there's a lot more pulling me here than any other camp. No matter what camp it was Florida or going to Mayhem or Proven or Vegas. It's like, I just like home now. I'm training way better. Like it's more my thing. I got my own garage gym now. I got a beautiful affiliate being built out here. It's like, I got so many new friends here. I have no reason to leave.
Yeah. What do you think about this picture and name combination?
Roman?
With this picture of Taylor.
Dude, what is he doing in that?
Nobody knows. But yes, Dave does give the athletes an opportunity to ask a question or two. So prep a good question or two for Dave when it's your turn. And Dave has mentioned swimming in most of his interviews. So he's either teeing you up for a big swimming event, maybe a two swims at the games for the first time ever, or he's just wetting the whistle, but nothing's going to happen.
It'd be nice to have 2 swims like they did in Dubai in 2019. Yeah, it was pretty sick. They did like back-to-back ones. And I'm like, that would be cool. If they have 13 to 15 events, it could make sense too. If one's like predominantly swimming, then one's just like swimming as a kind of throwaway movement per se, but still like you need to be good at it.
Dude, even think about if you just had a sprint swimming event and then a longer swimming event or water event,
Yeah, it's funny because I think with running, if you do a short and a long run, you'll get 2 completely different good groups at who's doing well at those. But with a swim, you do a short and a long swim, it's the same people on top for both.
But if you could, like you said, combine it with some other stuff, or you could throw in a paddle and a kayak or something like this, and maybe have a little bit of difference. And again, sometimes the runners, emerge at the top regardless of the distance. You know,
Totally.
like Tia Toomey, for example, she can sprint faster than most and run longer than most.
Totally. I've been going out on my kayak and my surfboard and doing pieces twice a week on the river out here, and it's been super duper fun. The water sports are cool, man. I think they're a cool spectacle to watch too.
So we've we invited all the reps ahead athletes on for this week, and you specifically told me, hey Brian, please, can you just give me a time to myself? I'm afraid of all the women.
Yes, I did.
Paige is really, she's a mean one.
Both those girls look really scary. I'm actually hoping to teach the whole squad there a new card game on Saturday night after we're done. So I'm hoping to make some friends. I personally don't know Nick, Sydney very well. I know Paige a little bit, but I'm excited to like get to know them more and hang out. I think it's going to be a really fun thing.
It is one of the cool, like I remember at Zalos games that happened a little bit. Like when you get these kind of smaller groups of athletes together, a little bit more like an intimate setting.
Yeah.
Not a huge, it's not like an event that people have been preparing all season for. So the stress isn't as high that you get those kind of personal interactions, which can oftentimes leads to friendships that can last a long time.
That's the goal. That's how me and you met, Brian.
Yeah. That's right.
I remember that. I remember walking in, it was a Rhino. You guys are sitting there playing. Was it what card game was that? You two and Alex, and I think, was it Jake?
I think Ethan Helbig.
Might have been Ethan. It was, yeah.
That's fun.
One of James' several losses to me.
Yeah, taking too many L's. I don't know how much more I can take at this point.
Now you referenced
that's the next reps ahead. Brian,
it's the only one I have a chance in.
I'm ready. Anything fitness, throw me in. The last reps ahead was a little tough. I've had this condition going on my hip, and I didn't even know it at the time when I was doing the last one, but it's called myositis ossificans. And basically it's where you get this ossification in your muscle. So your muscle starts turning into bone. And I was in the early stages of developing that, and that's when it's most painful. So the last reps ahead, I was like, what the heck is going on with my leg? Like, it's shut off. I'm not able to get in the squat. And this time I'm like the bone growth is fully calcified now in my leg. So I just have to have it removed sometime after the games. But I'm freaking stoked now because I'm not in pain anymore, and I can hustle now, and I got to prove that semi. I was like, oh, okay, my leg's good. Like, sure, it hurts, doesn't feel right, but I'm good to go now.
Didn't you also tell me you were waiting to beat Dallin at the games? Waiting
to beat him?
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to let him have him for now. I'm coming for his ass at the games.
I mean, guy looks pretty dang good. I'm going to be real. I think he has a chance to win this year at the games. I'm not there yet.
I want to tell you this. I don't think I told you this. Maybe I did. But after watching you compete at the West Coast, like I was literally I think the men's podium ceremony was going on, and it just dawned on me. And I turned around and I saw Torres there, and I said, I think Dallin can win next week in the East Coast, which is a pretty bold statement to make because Jeff Adler and Roman Krennikov are both there. Jeff Adler is just good at CrossFit. Like any competition, he's having a top 3 finish pretty much, regardless if it's online, in person, semis, 10 events, doesn't matter. He's just that good right now. And Roman, on paper, is very similar to Dallin, only more experienced, generally considered better at machines. But I just, from the training that I've seen in person with Dallin, the conversations I've had with him and Torres, and also with the success that you had, it just clicked for me that he might be able to win the semifinal.
Oh, totally.
Were you watching that Knoxville semi pretty close?
Oh yeah. I watched it all. I think that he was the winner, but you could also argue like against that. It's in the past. I think that it just lit some fire in him. It's a good thing. And I think that, there was fire lit in me too. I got a really bad no rep on my event 4, getting off my rower early, and that cost me second on the podium. So it's like, these little mistakes that add up, let them fuel you up rather than like be like, oh, I should have been there. Like, it's like, oh no, it's just added gas.
You mentioned a little while ago that part of the job of a professional athlete is to be engaged with the sport to a certain extent. Yeah. Someone was asking here in the comments, like, I think that the guys on Spin last night put the rankings at 1 to 40. Is that the type of thing that you pay attention to?
I actually did watch that in the sauna last night. I was, I'll give you my view of where I'm at right now. Hold on. Can I flip this camera? No.
That's
So,
I don't
anyway,
know actually.
this is irrelevant. I was in the sauna last night watching that, and anyway, I saw the rankings. I don't really pay attention to the rankings much because people ranked me in like 7th or 8th for this West Coast. I'm like, these are killer events for me. Some people just don't know what they're talking about. I would say once the ranking, if you get all the games events and then you make a rankings, I'll take your rankings a little more seriously and be like, okay, where are you at? But blind rankings with no events and no context is kind of just clickbait, in my opinion.
Yes, I would say yes and no.
For the bottom, it's
for
more
the bottom
clickbait.
half, I would agree with that because
Yeah.
there's been times, years past. I remember semifinals when there were 4 semifinals in North America and they were taking 5 male and female athletes each, that I made a preliminary ranking for each semifinal when they announced them prior to knowing the workouts. And then after the workouts were announced, I made a couple changes, mostly close to the bubble line, because that's where I think that the most volatility is. There were like maybe 1 or 2 athletes that I moved in that actually did qualify, but there were like 5 or 6 across all the semifinals, male and female, that I moved out that still ended up qualifying.
Yeah.
And so at the top end, it feels like those guys are just the fittest, or those girls are just the fittest. But when you're looking at the margins, and so like for the men's field, for example, I would say that there may be like 8 to 10 guys towards the top that I would be surprised if more than 1 or 2 of them didn't end up in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
But of the next 20 guys, let's just say 9 through 30 ranking, I think that a lot of how those athletes end up stacking up against each other can come down to not just the programming, but kind of the momentum that the programming creates.
Totally.
Some athletes can rebound from slow starts. A lot of athletes can't. And therefore, if they get off to a good start, they can ride that throughout the weekend.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny. I think the spin thing, John Young believes me. Shout out John Young.
He believes you, or he believes in you?
He believes in me. My goal this year is top 10. Like I know I'm capable of that. Last year was like, hey, get through the cuts, see where I'm at. Didn't make that. I got sick at the games. Not an excuse, just sucked that had to happen.
Yeah, it happens.
But like this year, I'm like, I'm gonna go in healthy. I'm gonna top 10 at the games. Like that's what's gonna happen, and I'm gonna make it happen. And I know what I have to do that. And it's like I feel like I'm really good about making realistic goals for myself. That like I'm not just gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go beat down at the games this year. Like he's really good. That's not likely to happen yet. I'm not gonna go beat Jeff in every event. Yeah, sure, I could maybe hang with him in runs and swims and long aerobic ones and whatnot and some specialties, but just being realistic of where you're at, because I know that realistic eventually is going to be winning, and it's just going to take some time to get there.
When where did they have you ranked, by the way? What does believing in you mean?
Like 16th or something, but I honestly, like I said, I don't pay attention to the ones before the events as much.
When I do the rankings for the games, I mean, we're still like 6 weeks away from the games or something, 5.5 weeks out. I've just done like groupings so far.
Yeah. Do you think they'll do cuts again is my question.
I mean, it's always difficult to speculate. I remember I had a conversation with Dave Castro about cuts one time, and I said, yeah, there was a 4-year period of time where you guys didn't have cuts. He's like, there was? I'm 2015 through 18, there were no cuts. And a lot of people think that was kind of the golden era of CrossFit.
Yeah.
Just on the back of Rich Froning, Fraser and Tia entering the scene, the media was building towards the kind of the climax that it was in 2018. And all 4 of those seasons, all of the qualifiers got to compete throughout the entire competition. And those still 2017 and 18 are some of my favorite CrossFit games ever. Mm-hmm. And I am and probably will always be a fan of, if you're qualifying a group of athletes to the CrossFit Games, I want to see them take the whole test.
Yeah, same. Because I mean, you think of Cole Sager, right? The comeback kid. His last day is always the best day. If you would have allowed him to compete on the final day last year, those were some killer events for him. But so I think he potentially could have climbed inside of top 20 without a doubt. But he ended his day. He ended after 6 events, and yeah, that's just my opinion. Like, there's some people where I'm like, okay,
how about Jason Hopper?
Yeah,
as bad as the first 2 days were. Maybe, but you still look at the days on Saturday, and it's hard to think that he wouldn't have had a good run and a good lift at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It is tough. It's just
Well,
like,
and right now they have payouts at every spot. So, even if it is an off week for them, but there's better workouts on the back half of the week, it could be 8 spots on the leaderboard, which maybe
yeah,
is an extra, $8,000 in the pocket or whatever, and a better
Yeah.
representation of, even on a bad weekend, how good he is against that field.
totally. It's funny, because like outside of the top 20, like 21 through 40, like the pay margins are very small as you increase. But once you get inside top 20, especially 10 to 1, pay margins go huge. So it's like you want to be in that top 20 to make a payday.
I think they borrowed the pay structure from World Series of Poker.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's like massive
Much money.
paydays, and then everyone else is just like, I don't know, there's tens of thousands of people playing in some of those events, but like 100 people will all make like $725, and then another 100 people will all make $783. And then
Gotcha.
at the top, it's like, oh, you got fifth, you walk away with $1 million. You got first, you left with 20 million.
Dude, I wish our sport was like golf, because these golfers, in the Masters and the Open and the PGA Championship, it's like these guys are in 40th place making 6 figures. Like, it's like, what? And they get 4 opportunities a year to do that. We get Rogue and Games.
Dude, their small events have $10 million prize purses.
It's so nuts.
Not that they're paying out to one person, but like, there's just so
And-
much money in golf. I think Sevan actually uses golf as an analogy. And I believe, I can't remember the exact number, but he said that on an annual basis, there's like $12 billion in golf ball sales, not clubs, not memberships, just golf balls. It's something insane like that.
I'm probably a good contributor with how many times I go in the forest or in the water.
We got this guy, Jason Isaacs here. James, I want you to know how good you are. Whether the semis were great events for you or not, the fact that you were swapping blows with Vellner, Justin, and Brent, you are here, buddy. How does that make you feel?
That's so sweet. I was going to say something weird. I'm not going to say it. Anyway, I think it's a really cool opportunity to be pushing these guys, and I look at them as competitors, not just like guys that are better than me now. I look at them as guys I'm going to beat. And you have to have that view, or else automatically you're going to be like, oh, I'm going too fast if I'm next to Vellner, or I'm going way too hard if I'm next to Fikowski in this workout. Like, he should be beating me. It's not like, no, I should be beating him. So that mental shift is where you start winning.
Do you think that mental shift takes place before you even get on the floor?
Oh yeah.
And
you have to put yourself in that position of like, okay, when I'm here, be ready for that. And be ready to push it even harder.
In the Alcoholics Anonymous, which I have some background with, they have the saying, fake it till you make it. Do you think that mentality is something that you can try for a long time to ingrain into your mindset, but at some point in your career, based on either something in a training or a competition, that it can kind of like almost subconsciously flip to, it's not just that I have to tell myself I can beat those guys, but now I know it, or I really believe it in my core?
Yeah, I feel like I definitely had to fake it for a little bit, like pretend like I'm there. And some things, like running, I never had to. I was like, I can beat anyone at running any day. I can be at the top. And swimming and biking and whatnot. Oh my gosh, get out. Baseball. But honestly, like, yes, there is a big point to that. Like, believing in yourself, even if you may not have the credibility to, or let's say, what is the term? Logos. Like credibility because of your character or your performance or background, whatever it is. Might be ethos. I don't know. Benoit or pathos. I don't even know at this point.
Your Greek,
anyway,
your Greek studies showing.
Yeah, really have not been great in school. So yeah, I would say you definitely have to believe, even if you haven't like proven it yet, because you're never gonna break through if you don't believe.
You already showed him this comment.
Yeah, sorry.
Founder of Beating Nick. So, one of the elements of the Reps Ahead, which you chose to write that, founder of Beating Nick, in your little profile today, is this, Phil kind of encouraged you guys to obviously promote the event, build up a little drama, do these little recordings where you're is that hard for you to like make fun of a guy like that for some certain things? Do you have fun with it, or what, because not everyone's that comfortable doing it, but you do it really well.
Oh, thanks. Actually, I appreciate that. I feel like I tried to not come off as cheesy. I feel like It is fun. It's outside of my comfort zone, yet also inside at the same time. Because he also knows. I feel like guys do a good job of this. Girls might not as much. Guys know it's not personal and it's fun. Girls may be like, "Oh, she just talked about my butt size. Like, that's not very cool." Like where guys are like, if I'm making fun of Nick's crop tops and his OnlyFans thing, he's like, "Oh, like that's funny." Like girls take it personally more of the time than guys. So like honestly, when Nick came at me, I was like, I wish he would have thrown at some more dirty bait at me, bro. I'm like it's fun. It's really fun, and I think it's a good thing for the sport.
This sequence that's coming up this weekend, it, like you said, you think it's the hardest one.
Oh, by
I think
far.
it's fair to say at the longer time domain, like it's gonna hurt.
Oh yeah.
Is there any part of you that's just like, I might just go for it and see, because I don't want this thing going more than X number of rounds one way or the other?
Yeah, I don't think Nick's gonna watch 25 minutes into our pod, so I'll speak about it. Yeah, I think that it'd be nice to be over with in 2 rounds. Let's put it that way.
And for people who watched Pro 2, that was a very different sequence. But Phil would have probably rewritten it a little different way if he had to, and so you saw this kind of longer match. I kind of like that one was different than this one, which is likely to be shorter, a little bit more aggressive. Because it kind of,
no way anyone's going 5 rounds in this one. I'll put it that way. Like someone's going to fall over dead before 5 rounds. That's scheduled 15 minutes of Fran.
We know that that's the case, and so we've kind of scheduled the time intervals or the expected time intervals accordingly. I think that most of the matches will end in the second or third round, which will be fun. But I do still think that there's an element of what happened with you and Tyler that's possible, where somebody can go out and get a close to maybe 8 to 12 reps ahead, and then suddenly give a big chunk of that away in round 2 or 3.
Are you saying that what happened with me and Tyler is going to happen with me and Nick again?
I think it's possible, because I think that it's worth it for some of the athletes to take the risk and try to win fast.
Yeah, I think it's worth it for Nick, but Nick, I'm not going to do that. Nick's squatting is going to be very impressive. This is what I expect to happen. Nick's going to do 6 thrusters to my 5. I'm going to do 12 box jumps to his 11. We're going to get on the chest to bar at the same time. That's what's going to happen. That's going to be our cadence. And his chest bar may be a little bit quicker. He's a little bit shorter. So it's going to be interesting. You're going to see him come off the bar first every round. And he's not going to break. I'm going to have to try and not break. But then he's going to slow down a lot on the box jumps is where I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, the fitness element will absolutely come into play. The last minute of those 3-minute intervals is going to be tough.
Oh, yeah.
I have some fun stats for you, but the girls are coming soon, so just be ready for that. Don't get too intimidated by them. We just thanks to Barkley and the database that he's created, we're able to pull a bunch of information. Nick Matthew has done 172 elite individual workouts or events in our database to your 108.
Wow.
Do you want to take a guess at how many event wins out of those 172 and 108 that each of you has?
Nick has, and this is combined with quarters, open, semifinals, games, anything outside of season, those events.
If we have them in our database, we have most Wadapaloozas, most Granite Games, like Dubai's, the big ones, but even smaller competitions we'd have, like Zalos Games will have, Fittest of the Coast, these types of competitions, NorCals, anything that we can pull, we'll have.
Do my teenage games count?
No, this is only individual events in the elite divisions.
I would say that Nick has a total of 12 event wins, and I would say that I have a total of 9.
You got one of them on the money, which is kind of incredible. You do have 9. Nick only has 3, but 2 of them come from the CrossFit Games, which is kind of crazy.
That's right. I remember that.
But I think it's a cool stat because it's hard to win events in this sport, especially against full fields of athletes.
So I have so I've done 109 events, right?
I get 108. Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So I have a 8% chance of winning an event.
Yeah, which is a lot higher than his percentage chance.
Oh man, that's really tough for him. You might not want to tell him that.
Well, it was one of the last things I wanted to leave you with, some little confidence and belief. Not that you're necessarily short on it.
Oh, there's a girl on here. This is scary.
Paige, you are on time, right as you're supposed to be. James is nervous. He was nervous to do any of these shows with the women, and but he is excited to meet you guys this weekend. He says he doesn't know either you or Sydney very well.
Oh.
No, I did not say
No.
about Paige. I said I know Paige better than Nick and Sydney, but me and Paige haven't had like quality time to catch up at a competition in a while, so I'm excited to hang out with you guys.
Yeah.
It's gonna be really fun.
We go way back though, Brian. Back to the teenage division.
Long time. Hey, I'm repping your area right now, Paige.
Heck yeah, you are.
Hey, you guys want to know something kind of cool? Actually, there's a kid that Patrick and I know from Turkey. He lives in Izmir, Turkey. His parents own an affiliate there. We trained and did some seminars at that affiliate. He competed as a teenager for the last time at Athens Throwdown, and this weekend he's competing in the Crown Series as part of the Madrid Championships that's going on in Ciudad Real. He applied to and got accepted to Tennessee Tech with a 5-year student visa to the U.S. So he's actually coming to Tennessee. You know, he's super.
That's awesome.
He's good at CrossFit and super passionate and motivated by it. So his name is Arsen, and maybe sometime in the next year you'll meet him, Paige. But
yeah, I'll keep an eye out for him for sure.
Yeah, he's just a big fan of Rich and Mayhem and everything there. So like, he could go to any school, and he's like, no. When we met, he's like, no, my dream is to go to Cookeville, to Tennessee Tech.
And he's making it happen.
Yeah.
Is he a big fan of burning things with fire? His name's Arsen.
Oh, I got
it.
Jeez.
James was nervous that his bashing of Nick Matthews was cheesy, and I can only imagine what the outtakes were.
Oh yeah, no, it's supposed to be cheesy. I mean, no one else did a roast video besides me and him. Paige was super nice, and so was Kyra. I'm like, you guys are too nice to each other.
Yeah, no, I got too nervous to do a roast video. That's just not my personality. I'm not witty like that.
I feel that. I faked it till I maked it, as me and Brian were just talking about.
Yeah.
The video that you did make, Paige, I wanted to ask you about it. Were you nervous at all about making that video?
Not really. Honestly, it wasn't really like my idea either. It was my boyfriend's idea to do like the step up at the beginning. And honestly, I thought it was funny. I didn't think it was too much of like a dish, but it was like just a little bit to like be witty. But
and I also have to ask you, because Patrick and I were extremely impressed with the delivery. How many takes did you have to go through to get that?
Only 2, which I'm pretty impressed by myself. But like, I had a little whiteboard, and it was just like key points on there. So I don't know. I feel like that stuff, I've just done it so much for like Mayhem and stuff now that it's not too hard, but it's always a little bit stressful.
Yeah, people react differently in front of the camera. That was, and like, you spoke for I don't know how long the video was, but it kept
like
kind of kept going,
minute.
And it kept engaging me, and I was like, wow, she's hitting on all the points. She's not stumbling over her words. I don't know if anyone edited this or how many times she had to do it, but I was impressed.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That means a lot.
So many people said Renovo instead of Renovo. Did Paige get it right?
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I don't know if I did either.
I looked back on Kyra's video. I was like, oh my gosh, I said it completely different. I don't know if I said it right, but I think people get the gist.
I don't know either. I think it's Philip's company, right?
Not Phil, it's Michael.
Michael's company. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be in their hood, man. It's gonna be fun.
Hello, Sydney.
We got another girl now.
Sorry, I had the wrong link somehow. I don't know how that happens, but
it's because you're in high demand, and everyone's always just constantly sending you links to come on their shows.
Not true.
Brian, am I kicked off now, or can I stay and hang out?
I mean, you went from being the best looking guy to barely squeaking onto the best looking person on the show to barely squeaking onto the podium, and the least entertaining of the group at this point. So we'll let you can hang around in the background, but we're going to talk to the girls.
Wow. someone just asked in the comments, will I do a Hawk Tua if I win an event at the games? Why is this thing so viral, bro?
Well, yeah, perfect, Patrick. All right. So Paige, Sydney, now that you're both here and James is gone, welcome. For those that don't know, Paige Powers and Sydney Wells will be the final main card match, the featured match for Reps Ahead Pro 3 Redemption this Saturday, 2 days from now, in Colorado. Both of you guys have had similar kind of, I guess really the last 18 months or so have been relatively similar for both of you in terms of competition. With qualifying for the games last year, very levels of successes there, some off-season stuff, and then this season kind of ending shorter than was expected. That's not news to you guys or news to anyone else who's following along with this sport. And for Patrick and I, we're always interested in trying to create opportunities for athletes when they might feel like the one that they were pursuing didn't go their way. Because as you guys know, in this sport, nothing's guaranteed. Even if you're the fittest you've ever been, you could get sick at a semifinal or a quarterfinal weekend. And that's just how the sport sometimes goes. So the kind of off right the bat, I wanted to ask you, has not being able to compete in the semifinals, I think, Sydney, we'll start with you and then Paige can add in, not being able to compete in semifinals this year when clearly you're fit enough and capable enough to do that, caused you to change anything in terms of perspective of approaching being a pro athlete in this sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely makes you not take anything for granted. And it honestly motivated me even more. It just makes me want to be that much better next year. So,
which is huge. There are a lot of different things can be motivators for athletes.
yeah.
And I think that is a very healthy way to respond to something like this. Maybe that wasn't the initial response, but after having some weeks and months and talking to people about it, that's a great place to be. Paige, I actually saw you the week after that kind of happened because you had come to Crash Crescendo. You were coaching, I guess, the Mayhem Liberty team that was there. Obviously, both Mayhem teams were there. And we ended up kind of spontaneously having a conversation on the last day. And I was pretty impressed with your kind of outlook on it in a relatively short amount of time. But, I don't know if you've had a chance to share any of that. But what was the turnaround for you in terms of dealing with that and then reframing going forward?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what Sydney said, it's a good opportunity to light the fire for next year as well. I think with time, I've seen that perspective. But kind of immediately, I kind of just was it was so crazy to me. And it's through the 7 years of competing, I've never even gotten a minor penalty. So I kind of just have always viewed it as God's plan for this season. And it's now I'm getting this amazing opportunity to do reps ahead because it's I didn't, compete at the games this year. My season was cut short. But honestly, I think it's really been a blessing in disguise. And I think that I needed a little bit of downtime just to kind of recollect myself. And I always want to go to the games and perform 100% there. I'm not sure if I would have had that fire this year, but I definitely do have it for next year now.
And thank you for sharing that. And like I said, the last maybe 18 months, there's some similarities, but I want to go way back because Sydney, when I was doing a little preparation for this, I saw that you first registered for the Open in 2013.
Yeah.
And you have this one kind of data point there. That was quite a long time ago. You were still basically about 2000th in the world, top 200 in the region that you competed in. But you were very young and I'm assuming relatively new to CrossFit. And then you didn't do another Open for 6 years after that.
Yeah. So I was training, I was using CrossFit to train for track in high school. So my senior year, I started CrossFit and I only did it for that 1 year. So when I did the Open, it was the first year I ever started CrossFit. And then I went and ran track at Mizzou. So I didn't do the Open again for 6 years.
M-I-Z.
Yeah. ZOU.
Ooh, perfect. I didn't even plan that. Paige, what were you doing in 2013? She even there?
Gymnastics. Yeah, probably. What? Man, that was 11 years ago. So, yeah, probably gymnastics and I don't know if I'd be in middle school then. Probably elementary school.
We have another Mizzou fan in the house here, John Young. What's up, John?
that.
John Young's been a hot topic of conversation. I don't even know what's going on over here, but James and John are having some kind of love affair in the chat. James actually said he was watching John Young's, I guess their rankings for the games last year from his sauna. So whatever's going on with those two guys, we'll leave that alone for now. Paige, it looks like you might be frozen on your screen there. We can still hear you, but if you want to log out and log back in, that would be okay to maybe kind of refresh it. Thank you for sharing that, Julian. Sydney, I had this, obviously I've seen you compete before. I got the opportunity to come down to Proven this year for the open announcement. That was kind of a late addition to that field, but that was super fun for me to watch you do that. I mean, just in case people forgot, Ariel Lowen was third place at the games last year. Roman Krennikov would have been first or second place and ended up finishing third anyway. Jay Crouch had a career year 8th place. That's a pretty stout lineup of athletes to have to go against. How did you feel getting invited, being able to do that, especially at your home gym?
Yeah, honestly, it was crazy because I was so excited all week that we were having it at Proven and we were going to get to watch Tia compete against Ariel. And then I think it was Monday and it was on Thursday maybe. And Tia was like, I can't do it anymore. And so there was a lot of uncertainty there. And I didn't know until 2 days before. So honestly, there were a lot of nerves, but I was more so just so thankful for the opportunity to do something like that. I feel like it just doesn't come often. But yeah, I was definitely extremely nervous.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I think it was Brent Fikowski this year. He did the first one with 3 other athletes as well, and he said, the last one I did was 2017, and this is a guy who's a multiple-time podium athlete. It's just not that often that you get invited or have a chance to. But CJ is absolutely right. You showed out at that announcement for sure. I talked about it earlier this week because we were previewing the show. It was kind of round 6, 7, 8. It looked like you just kind of got a boost of energy and made a decision I'm just going to go for this and see what happens. And you kind of started putting the pressure on the early leaders.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was hard to have strategy for that because we were obviously the first ones going in. So I truly didn't really know or trust the plan I had because I just didn't know how it was going to feel. So yeah, I just kind of got a little bit of a second wind, but then it definitely caught back up to me at the end.
Well, conversely, you've been, where the open announcement you found out that day will literally and have 10 minutes to warm up and then actually do it.
Yeah.
Actually, it was about an hour that time.
Yeah, I was going to say we did get it released a little bit early, but it was probably an hour.
But conversely, reps ahead, you got the workout 2 weeks ago, maybe longer than that?
Maybe even longer, yeah.
So now, have either one of you? We talked to Kyra and Kelly, and they each said that they've done the workout. They've tried it out a couple times. Have either of you tried it out? And how has your strategy changed from, if you have practiced it, how has that strategy changed?
Yeah, I practiced it one time last week.
Okay.
And yeah, it was very difficult, way more difficult than I had anticipated. But I would say going in, I didn't really have a strategy. I was using that as an opportunity to kind of form a strategy. But with a competition like this, I feel like you can't really have a set strategy because it can change just based off of what the other athlete is doing, which is so opposite to any CrossFit event I've ever done because I always have my plan and staying in my own lane and doing what I need to do to get the best time I can do. But in something like this, it's just completely different strategy and you just have to be focused on what your competition is doing.
Paige?
Yeah, I tested out the workout as well last week. And I didn't test out all 5 sets of it. I did 3.5, and that was about good enough to know how the last 2 were gonna feel if we get to that point. But yeah, honestly I haven't been doing CrossFit like that consistently. So it was a good wake up to the lungs. I think I had Fran lung for quite a bit after that, and my legs were dying. But yeah, I kind of just like that one was kind of just like full send, go for it, see, how I feel, how my body's going to react. And then I did one more time after that. I just did like a quick 2 sets of the intervals and kind of played a little bit more with like pacing to see how I'd feel vice versa. But honestly, I think that, like Sydney said, it's just going to depend on like what happens in person. And also it's like either way you do the workout, whether it's paced or whether you're full sending or whatever it is, like your legs are going to be on fire and your lungs are going to be on fire. So kind of just gotta buckle up and settle in for it.
This technically it's a third pro iteration of this pro match. The first one was kind of small. The last one had some big time athletes in it, top 10 games finishers on both the men's and women's side. And now we have the Pro 3 coming up, which obviously some other high caliber athletes like yourselves. When you got invited to do this, did you do any research? Did you go back and watch any of those? Did you guys reach out to any of the athletes to see if this was something that would be interesting to you? And what was kind of the process of deciding to do it? Paige, you can go first.
Honestly, like whenever I first committed, I didn't really like look at anything. I think Brian, you sent me the Pro 2. And so I had taken a look at that and kind of just to get the feel of what the layout would be like. But honestly, I just wanted an opportunity to get back out on the competition floor. And this is such a unique opportunity to go 1v1. And I've never done something like that, honestly, like in all my years of competing throughout all sports. So I was super excited to do something different and like kind of out of my comfort zone. So I kind of just, wanted to just go for it and commit to it. And then after that, I kind of started to look more at like the videos and, how they strategized it, how it went down, specifically the one with Alexis and B. And I don't know, it kind of got me fired up because it looked really fun, but it looked like they were both hurting a lot. So,
Sydney?
Kind of like what Paige said, it was kind of crazy. Like the day I was approached about doing it, my coach had mentioned that I needed to find some off-season competitions. And I was like, well, this is perfect. And then they had mentioned that Paige might be doing it. So I texted Paige and I was like, if she's doing it, I'm doing it. And she said yes. So it's like, perfect. Here we go.
I love that because it is, I think it's everything that you described it as, Paige, is a unique experience. There isn't and hasn't been very much opportunity for one-on-one competitions outside of an open announcement, really, which, as Sydney mentioned, is very few and far between that even get invited to something like that. Paige, you've been doing this sport for 7-8 years now, and this is going to be a new experience for you. And Phil is, as you guys know, is very passionate about this. He has a lot of belief and investment in it. Personally, they're, obviously investing money to make these rewarding experiences for the athletes. But without the athletes, this still doesn't happen. So it's really meaningful to us that people like James and Dallin and Alexis Fee and the two of you, Nick, even guys like Jake Marconi that are kind of coming out of retirement to do something like this, like that means a lot to us that you guys are willing to do that. So just in case I don't get a chance to tell you this weekend.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
I think that other people will absolutely be interested though, because this is obviously a one-off event. It's it's going to be, 15 minutes or so that you guys are there on the screen. It's pretty cool to have that opportunity because even competing at the CrossFit Games, you probably don't have 15 minutes cumulative of footage of yourself from a broadcast doing the workouts over 4 days or 3 days of competition. And here it's all about you, which is very cool. But do either of you have, have you laid out any other plans for the rest of 2024 beyond, this weekend?
I guess for me, I've kind of just like left it open. I'm not sure how much competing I'm going to be doing this season. I think it just depends on like where I am mentally and physically. I will be at the first 4 Monster Games in mid-July, and I'll be like speaking there and be around the event, and then I'm gonna hop in for a workout or two in the competition, which will be fun. But other than that, I'm kind of just, playing it by ear and like seeing how I am mentally and physically because I really want to focus on next year's season.
Paige, is one of those, are you going to jump in that swim event?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'd love to do a swim event. So
I know. That's what I figured. Like Paige loves swimming. I mean, if I'm going
yeah.
to pick an event, that's the one I want to jump in on, especially on those hot Missouri. I mean, those very hot and humid Missouri days. So
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully the water will be cold too. Is
Olivia's going to be there, and Chris Ibarra as well, right?
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
From what I know. Yep. Yeah. I'm excited.
Sydney, have you picked out anything else for this year?
I'm gonna do NorCal Classic. I think it's in September, and then I'm going to try to qualify for Rogue. That would be really cool to compete there. So I'll do those qualifiers, and then of course Wadapalooza in January.
Yeah, you seem to love that one.
I just feel like competition experience is so good for me because I am like relatively newer to the sport. So it's just, yeah, I feel like I've done it every single year since I started.
Keep the tradition going.
Yeah.
Will you go to SoCal at all? Huntington Beach version of Wadapalooza? Check that out.
I'm not sure. I've heard rumors that it's going to be different than normal Wadapalooza, and I don't know what that all entails. So just kind of waiting to see.
This is kind of a fun one, I guess. Have you guys watched any of the Kill Taylor stuff on Savon's podcast?
No.
I've heard about it, but I haven't like actually watched it.
Yeah, he basically picks workouts that he's really good at, and obviously he's super fit. He came 2 spots short of making the games in the East Regional, which is kind of maybe probably the hardest regional for the men. And the women's side might have been the hardest region in the world if you guys were both in the field. But anyway, and then people can call in and try to beat him live on the spot in a workout that's supposed to be great for him. And a few top level athletes have called in. Colton Mertens beat him one time. Yellow Hoste beat him one time. But there's been less women that have called in than men. So it's a fun thing that they're doing. You can win money on the spot if you happen to beat them in the workout. I would say for athletes that are as good as you, it's worth kind of just keeping an eyeball on, because like this weekend is $1,500 on the line. This might not be the best weekend because you already have to do a hard workout on Saturday. But if no one beats him, then that pot goes to $2,000 next week. And if you look at the workout and you're like, oh, wow, those happen to be 2 things I'm really good at, maybe I could win $2,000, and people would obviously love it. So keep it in the back of your mind.
Yeah, it might be heavily workout dependent if I join or not.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. The only person who has to do the workout is him. And he writes it. Everyone else can just kind of watch and wait for their opportunity and cherry pick the one that they think they can beat him in.
So is it like multiple people that can hop on at one time? Or is it only one that gets to go?
I don't know who mans the phone lines, but basically they'll pick someone and say, okay, boom, you're in. And then that person's there. The one thing is you have to have a little bit of thick skin on that show, because in addition to being a competition, it's also advertised as that they will ridicule you if you screw up. Or if you lose. So you want to be prepared, have your camera ready. If they tell you need to measure something, whatever, just like any online qualifier workout, they want to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. And then if you start falling behind too far, sometimes they just kick you out, or sometimes they'll make fun of you when you fail, and then they'll bring in someone else. I've watched a couple of them, but it's pretty cutthroat. But hey, like I said, you guys are so good at specific things. It could be an easy money-making opportunity down the line. And
I think they're both good at things that Taylor's good at too. Like I'm waiting for Taylor to do a swimming workout.
I hope he does a swimming workout. He's got a swimming background. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm waiting for him to do some type of like sprint running workout, which Sydney's really good at too. So I mean, there could be some workouts there that I don't know, but it's all about it's all about timing. But Brian mentioned like this week, there's $1,500 on a line for Kill Taylor, but you guys will be competing for $1,500 as well. Even though I know you guys are friends, but knowing that there's $1,500 potentially to the winner of, well, not potentially, there is $1,500 to the winner of your matchup. I know. I mean, is it friendship thrown out the window for that amount of money?
Hey, we'll still be friends no matter who wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I
don't
know, maybe it's a little bit easier on the girl side of things, because it's like, I don't know if we have that innate like want to kill each other. It's like, yes, we're very competitive, but it's like we can also learn at the games. Like we can have an environment where we're still like friends and talking,
Yeah, I agree.
It is, and I mean, Phil adds on here. Do you guys get in? You know, there's a guarantee. Like, it's a appearance fee basically. Like, you get paid to compete there, but you also are competing for a cash prize. I'm sure there are times in CrossFit where you realize maybe going into an event at the end of a competition that there might be some money on the line between you and one other person, but it's a relatively unique format that, you know, it obviously creates an investment for the athletes. Like, yeah, there's like, I want to win. I want to win the money. But also for the fans to know that there's a little bit more on the line than oftentimes appears to be from a financial perspective. That makes me excited. Does that do anything for you guys in terms of added motivation, or is it just like anytime I compete, I want to win?
I mean, for me, it's like I got into the sport with like not expecting money. It's like I did it because I needed a competitive outlet, and like I'm always gonna be somebody that wants to win, whether it's, you know, in 20 years, like I'm, you know, way outside of the CrossFit space. There's always gonna be something that I'm competitive in, like whether it's my job or like, you know, being a mom or whatever it is. So I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of like inside me to want to win, but at the same time, it's like it does help to have a cash prize. It does help with a little bit of motivation. So
Yeah, I agree with Paige. I'm not like super money motivated. I'm just competitive with or without it, but it's definitely a good added bonus. When I'm tired, I'll be like, okay, come on, like one more rep, $1,500.
yeah.
I'm
You know,
sure
this,
I'll be on the floor with you, so I'll be reminding you of that. So
Okay.
yeah,
Perfect.
PC's coming out of a 7.5-year retirement of
Yes.
emceeing his first competition in a while.
yes,
Let's
go.
I used to MC some CrossFit events. I mean, so yeah, I got pulled out of retirement for this one because Bella's going to be on the broadcast with Brian, so they needed someone to do the MCing. So yeah. So do you guys have any nicknames that I can refer to you? Like, none? All right, I'm gonna
Literally
make,
just did.
huh?
I mean,
Just Sid?
Yeah.
yeah, the guys at the gym decided to give me like a little bit of an appropriate nickname just because my initials are PP. So now they call me Big PP, but I'm not sure that I'd say that
Okay.
out on the competition floor.
Yeah, we won't say that.
Yeah. It's not family friendly.
No, yeah.
It
You
also
know,
brings back like elementary trauma.
Oh no.
We
Yeah.
don't want any of that.
It's that mayhem mindset, huh? That mayhem mindset.
Yeah. Yep. Just a bunch of like brothers at the gym constantly poking at you.
Well, both of you will be, you know, you live and train in environments that during the summers change a little bit, right? There's a lot of games athletes that train there. And then there's other games athletes that'll travel internationally to come and be there. Obviously, last year you were a part of that. This year, neither of you will be. Are you going to kind of use it as an opportunity to get some game style training in with those groups of people? Have you kind of found a way to maybe support and contribute with some of those athletes since you aren't going to be, you know, competing with them this year? And maybe is that difficult to watch all those athletes compete, you know, training for the thing that you wish you were competing for?
So are you asking if we're going to like train with the people in our camps?
Yeah. How will you kind of integrate with the games training that's going to be going on around you?
Yeah, I mean, I love games training. I was doing it before I even qualified for the games, just hopping in here and there. So definitely something that I will be doing, you know, like with Tia, and then I know Maddie and Jay are coming in town. So it's just fun to like throw down with everyone, no matter if I'll be out there or not.
That's Madeline Surt and Jay Crouch, excuse me. When they were up there for, I don't know, 6 weeks already at one point this year, right?
Yeah, they were. It's so fun having them in town.
Yeah, I mean, they are very fit and they're also pretty cool people. I've probably not had as much time as you to interact with them, but was there like some kind of friendships that were formed? And how cool is it going to be to have them back prior to the games?
Oh yeah, for sure. We love having them around and hanging out with them. I would definitely consider them friends of mine now. So yeah, it's like a countdown. Like every day we get to the gym, we're like, okay, Jay and Maddie are getting here in this many days. So we're excited.
No, I spoke to both of them after they were there. They loved their time there. They've both kind of taken a little bit of a step forward in their career since starting with Proven. So I'm sure it'll be a fun environment this summer. Patrick, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, well, Paige, you can also answer this question. Sydney, obviously, one of the big things that came out yesterday news-wise was, Kiefer coming over the Proven. And with that, obviously that means some more athletes are coming into the gym. Maybe not all the time, but you're going to see new names, whether it be Kyra or, Gracie Walton or some of his other athletes coming through. Paige, you've seen this at Mayhem where it seems like it's almost like a rotating door of athletes that, well, maybe just new athletes showing up all the time as these camps have grown bigger and bigger. Are you ever threatened by that, or do you feel, or do you take it on your own, take responsibility, like you want to help welcome those new members in, or you try to make them as comfortable knowing that you were in that position at one point?
I think it's really beneficial to actually have your competition, that you're like training with your competition. I think that there's things that I can help teach others, and there's things that I can learn from others as well. So I don't see it as a threat. I could see why some people would, but that's not how I look at it.
Yeah, I want to add on to that. And like at Mayhem, we've already created such like a welcoming environment. And I mean, like you said, like I was in that position once too. And I also like moved down here to train with the best. So, I believe that you get better by training with people that are better than you. Maybe not necessarily in every workout, but I mean, that's how I started. Like I was getting my butt kicked in every single workout here. So it's like kind of cool that I can like hold my own now when some people come into town that are really fit, but then also, get humbled every once in a while and still know like beforehand of competition what the things I need to work on are. So
do either of you ever go back and watch the competitions that you competed at, like the broadcast, or if someone filmed your workout after the fact as a means of learning from it?
I have like in the past, I don't really do it so much just because, I mean, there's some workouts where I'm like, I think went way worse in my head than they actually did. But for the most part, I feel like I have a good grasp of like, I know, where I started hurting, why I started hurting, like if it was because I went out too hot or whatever the case was. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I probably should. I think I could maybe learn a lot from it, but I don't do it as often as I should.
I was thinking about it. Someone had put this comment up here, CJ. Other thing that's cool about Repside is you can watch both athletes do the entire workout instead of jumping from one to the other. And, if you watch a broadcast and you're trying to watch yourself do it, and that's the only footage you have, you're probably not going to see your entire workout on a field of 10, 20, 40 athletes, whatever it is. But it just sort of kind of reminded me of my sporting career, because I never really watched game tape of a soccer match until I was in college. And then I started watching the replays, and I was actually learning quite a bit from it. But we, would set up like a stationary camera, because, you're not going to see every player throughout the entire match either on a broadcast, because they're following the action, zooming in, whatever. I actually have never really asked athletes how much they go back in CrossFit and study their own game tape, so to speak, as a means of getting better. But in Reps Ahead, you can do it very easily, I guess.
Yeah, that's something that like my dad encouraged, because he swam in college. And so it was like easy for him to line up, all 10 lanes or however many are going, and he can see himself the whole time. So that's something that he always encouraged me to do, like CrossFit. And I think it would have helped me back in gymnastics to watch like the videos that my parents took, because I'm such a visual learner. So I definitely should do a little bit more than I do, but it's really like, if there's something where I'm like, man, I just don't know what happened, I'll look back. But like you said, it's kind of hard because you only see clips of you here and there. But
I feel like it probably happens more in training, where if you're doing an Olympic lifting session, wherever, you might film that, send it to a coach, and get some feedback and break down the tape. But I haven't heard too much about it in competition.
Yeah, it definitely lives. I know for semis last year, I videoed all my workouts and watched them before competing. So I guess I would do it in training. I don't really go back to watch like competitions, mainly because of what y'all were saying, because you don't really even see yourself the whole time. But definitely like training.
Well, we're past the 30 minutes here that we promised you guys. Well, last question for you, Sydney, from a fan here, Will. have you learned anything from High Rocks that you think can transfer to CrossFit?
That's an interesting question. High Rocks is completely different. It is kind of like, it's just, you knew exactly how to prepare for it, which I think is just so wild because in CrossFit, you don't know what to expect. So I think just like nailing down like training and being more specific. I don't know. That's a good question.
Did you go out too hot on that, your High Rocks event, or?
No, that's actually what is my biggest frustration is I was told by several people, like, don't go out too hot. So what would have probably been my strengths was like the sled push and sled pull.
Mhm.
But since they were the second and third station, I was like in the back of my head, like, don't go too hard. And so I like did not go hard enough on those, and it really put me back. So if I could do it again, I would actually push those two stations.
Is there
I'm you stronger comparatively to the field.
Yeah.
Is there a motivation to do it again?
I am doing it again, but I haven't told anyone, but me and my sister are going to do one.
A team?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Someone had said that you two would be a killer team, but I mean, yeah. You
We would.
Me?
Are you allowed to say High
I
Rocks?
can't run like her.
Are you allowed to say which High Rocks you're going to do? Or
Oh yeah, we're doing the High Rock Chicago.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Brian did that one.
I did that
really?
one a few summers ago. I did male, female teams of 2, which was kind of crazy to me because they use the men's weight on the sled, which just totally crushes the men early in the event. It's like, and then they use the women's wall ball weight at the end. Like, whatever, but I guess they have to do something. I feels like they could have picked the weight in between at least. Anyway.
That's a cool event in Chicago. They do it there. I believe past years they did it in Navy Pier. There's a convention center there too, but it's grown so big. Who knows? They might have outgrew that venue, but that's cool. I believe that's a qualifier too.
Really? Yeah, we're kind of just doing it for fun. Like we were super excited to get the opportunity to compete at the games together this year, and obviously that didn't happen. So we're just gonna do this.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Patrick's got to leave in about 5 minutes for the airport. You guys both flying in tomorrow to Denver?
Yeah, we're on the same flight.
Nice.
Yep. Bright and
easy
early.
day.
Who's in first class? Who's in business? Or who's in?
We actually booked seats next to each other. So
yeah, not
that's
very
amazing.
That's great. Well, I look forward to seeing you guys maybe tomorrow. If not, definitely on Saturday. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Brian.
Of course.
Do you have anything?
No, perfect. Make sure you guys don't miss it. Set a reminder for Saturday evening in Colorado. Obviously, adjust accordingly for time zones. It'll be on B.Friendly Fitness, and the final match of the day will be Paige Powers versus Sydney Wells. They were our final interview in our podcast previewing that event this weekend. So thank you both for being here, and we'll see you guys in Colorado tomorrow.
Of course.
Amazing.
See you.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Got a little James Sprague, got Paige, got Sydney. And like I said, Patrick's got to go. So we're not going to stick around very long. James Sprague contributing to the fund. $99, super 99 cents, excuse me. Super. He can't afford $99. Super sticker.
Before I go, I did want to bring this up. When we spoke, I believe, was it Monday? We talked about, we talked about Phoebe. And
yes.
So at the time, I believe you have an update, Brian, or somewhat of an update as of yesterday.
Yeah, I had heard from competition director there, who's kind of been keeping tabs on her. She pulled through the kind of congestion that was going on in the chest. She was being taken off of life support. Her heart is very responsive, so everything's kind of progressing well. This was the link that we shared for being able to support her. If you didn't hear about it, she was competing at Fittest of South Carolina, which I was streaming last weekend, and she kind of collapsed on the field of play. It was a very traumatic experience there. She ended up going to the hospital, had a stroke, there was a variety of different things going on. It's pretty scary. It's great to hear that she's doing well, and there's been an outpouring of support for her So if you guys can support financially, that's great. Through prayer, anything else that's meaningful to you. But it's good to hear that things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and you guys, I mean, certainly since we posted it, there's been an outpouring of support financially, and also, like Brian said, through other means. So this will be back in the chat. We're actually going to post something else on this again. So we appreciate everyone that's contributed and sent and asked us how she's been doing. So Brian, I'm gonna go, but if you want to stay on and answer some other questions, or I'll let you have at it. But yeah, I'll see you in Denver tomorrow.
All right. Thank you as always, Patrick.
Oh yeah. Oh, also before we leave, if you notice, we have. Oh, let me see if I can shrink that. No, maybe not. HGR. We're proud to say that they're staying on as a sponsor. They've been great, and if you follow, if you click on that little QR code there and follow Homegrown Relief, you get a chance to enter a drawing for $50 in credit from the HGR store. So just scan that little QR code there, follow them on Instagram, and you might be selected for $50 credit, store credit for HGR. So, obviously, thanks again to Carl, Dimitri, the guy, the crew over at HGR. Amazing. They've been very big supporters of us, and we're glad that we can continue on with that support. So do us a favor, support those that support us, scan that QR code, follow them, and have a chance to win some cool stuff from HGR.
Thank you, PC.
All right, I'm out. Have fun, Brian.
All right, see you.
See you guys later. All right, everyone, thanks.
Julian, I will. I can talk about this for a second. Any thoughts on what Dave said to Saxon about splitting up the team games from the individual games so it gives athletes more of a chance to compete? Yeah, I guess I have several thoughts about that. I haven't listened to the one with Saxon yet, so maybe don't want to assume too much. But with this, factioning of the CrossFit Games this year for the masters, teenagers, and adaptive athletes, this almost seems like a natural next step as something that could potentially happen. I'm kind of personally curious to see how things go on site at the games this year. I'm going to get flying on Monday, so I should hopefully be able to just be around during the check-in, kind of gauge the pulse of how things are going on, watch the flow of the weekend. I'm curious to see if they'll make any adjustments schedule-wise, where instead of having events strung out over the course of the day, if they might pocket them a little bit more to have more focused broadcast times with less divisions overall happening. I'm not sure. This, if he means more chance to compete, suggesting that athletes would want to compete at both the individual and the team CrossFit Games, I think there is some merit to that based on, competitions that high-level athletes have done in the past. A lot of, Wadapalooza is a great example where a lot of individual athletes will team up with other individual games athletes to compete as a team at Wadapalooza. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that someone would want to do that. I mean, you can especially think about athletes who are historically individual athletes that train in gyms that also have a lot of affiliate representation at the CrossFit Games in recent times are going backwards. And so you could see an opportunity like that. I don't know how much overlap we'll have from masters to games this year or teams to masters. But I also think that it's important for maybe the CrossFit HQ team to keep in mind the context of the entire year of competition. There are so many competitions in the world of CrossFit, and already this year we see some of that conflict, right? The Masters and Teenage Games is happening on the same weekend. The Adaptive CrossFit Games is happening the same week as Tier SoCal. If you pull out the teams and create another weekend where they're competing, is there a really an appropriate spot to kind of slot that in where there's not other major competitions going on that elite level athletes might be drawn to? So I think there's a lot of nuance to this question or this decision that should be considered. And when Dave says this, I don't know what his level of awareness is of how often athletes are competing in other competitions. If you are thinking about those top level athletes and just looking at this year, then in addition to the CrossFit Games in August, there's a potential for them to compete at SoCal in September. There's a potential for them to compete at Rogue in November. There's a potential to be competing in Dubai in December. There's a potential to be competing again in Miami in January. Not all those athletes are going to compete at all those competitions, but maybe they'll do one or two. And then if you threw in the team CrossFit Games on top of that, when would it be? And would it detract from those athletes wanting to compete in some of those other off-season events? And is that overall a healthy thing for the ecosystem? So it's a big question to me. And it's not surprising that he's having that thought or sharing that thought could be a potential, but I do think there's a lot of aspects of it to consider there. Johnny, did all athletes pass their drug test at semis? Don't know yet. This process usually kind of wears on a little bit through the summer, because in the event that an athlete fails a drug test and they get notified, they historically have had the opportunity to say, I want to have my B tested, my B sample tested. And if they want to do that, then there's another series of testing that has to take time to happen. So I would think that if there were athletes in week 1 of semifinals that failed drug tests, that we would be hearing about it in the next 2 weeks, and then add a week for week 2, add a week for week 3, which more or less puts you towards the last week of July. And by the time, I would say, July 25th-ish rolls around, I think we'll probably know. I would be surprised if any come out later than July 30th, with the games, set to start on August 8th, which is my birthday. So that's what I think about the drug testing. Trying to see if I had anything else in here earlier. I don't think so. So appreciate the questions. Appreciate you guys for being here. Of course, appreciate James, Paige, and Sydney for taking the time, sharing a little bit with their perspective on things in general. James joined us right as we were talking about some big changes in the CrossFit space. If you joined late and want to go back, we talked about Sean Woodland not broadcasting the games, Kiefer Lammi moving over to Proven, Marvel Black getting an invite to semifinals, Sasha Nieves on her way back from a little shoulder dislocation, and a few other things in the run-up. Saturday, Thornton, Colorado, Reps Ahead 3 Redemption will be going live. Bella Martin and I will be on the call. PC will be on the floor for the MC. And we got 6 total matches on B.Friendlyfitness.com. You can find the rundown for all 6 of those matches, 2 community matches, 1 undercard with Jake Marconi and Malachi Bennett, who we had on earlier this week, leading into 3 main card matches. Kyra Milligan versus Kelly Stone. They joined us on Monday on the podcast. If you haven't heard from them, go check that out. And then we'll have James Sprague and Nick Matthew. And finally, Paige Powers and Sydney Wells. Should be a really fun event. Chad Mueller's coming out there, so he'll be doing some behind-the-scenes stuff, gathering some content that we may put out in a vlog early next week to give you guys a little background look at some of the stuff that happens tomorrow, which Friday, prior to the competition, Saturday morning, Saturday night, and just a more kind of complete experience of what the Reps Ahead weekend is like for Pro 3. And we'll go from there. I'm actually going to Norway next week for some competitions in Europe. But right now, all focus is on Reps Ahead. Thank you to HER CBD for the continued support. Like PC said, scan the code down there and set your alerts for this weekend on B.Friendly Fitness YouTube if you want to watch the Reps Ahead match. The schedule, it's already scheduled there. And the schedule of matches can be found in the article. So we'll see you guys from Denver. And until then, be friendly, our friends.